You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, we just want to let you know we appreciate you tuning in, listening, or watching The Bible Guys today.
I love that roll-in because if people didn't know, they might be thinking that they were tuning into something
different,
really amazing. And then, right. So there's a warning. Hey, just so you know, you're listening to The Bible Guys.
Hey, we should change the roll-in to go, okay, heads up.
Warning. Yeah.
This is not a scholarly approach. This is a discussion of fun and practical things revolving around the Bible, which, by the way, right. I have always believed one of the main reasons why. In fact, I just talked about this when we were on vacation, not vacation, but I went down a couple of days early to see my daughter in Florida.
You had a couple of vacation days.
Yes. We went to the Global Partners Weekend.
I did not.
Yes, that's correct. Anyway, when I was on the vacation part of my thing, I was walking and I was talking and I said, you know, the reason why I became a communicator, or actually a pastor in general, is because I wanted to be able to communicate that the Bible is relevant, it is practical, it is applicable, right, and it's understandable. And so it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about communicating, is because that's what the Bible is. It's meant for that. Yeah. So fun and practical ways, there's nothing wrong with that.
So while you were saying that, you were also walking. You were walking and talking on your vacation.
We were walking toward a restaurant.
Yeah, that skill set's one of the things I've always loved about you. Your ability to walk and talk.
I was able to rub my stomach and pat my head at the same time. We haven't even gotten into our segment yet. It's already a minute in.
Okay.
All right. So this is one of our favorite segments that has a jingle. We are going to do mailbags. Mailbags is when somebody writes in. By the way, there's no physical mailbag.
There isn't.
It's an email.
There's not. It's
bag,
always, that's
quote
right.
unquote bag.
That's right.
By the way, if you want to email us, it is info@thebibleguys.com. Hopefully we'll put it on the screen if you're watching. And you can also text in, through YouTube and all those different ways. So,
that's right.
Anyway.
Carrier pigeon. Anything.
This comes from Marissa L.
Hi, Marissa L.
Yeah. And Marissa says this: throughout your years of ministry or out traveling, did you ever have an, quote, I can't believe I actually did that, unquote, moment? And what was it?
Yes.
We've had plenty of those.
I've had so many of those. Oh, that's a great question, Marissa.
Yeah. Okay. You want to go first?
I've had a few. Most of them are usually on like a day off. So typically when I go overseas, it's like 5 or 6 days, 10, 12-hour days of working. But then we kind of have this policy, and you've been a part of this, where we'll take a day and we'll do something fun, right, somewhere. And so on those fun days, sometimes I think maybe I shouldn't have done that. We went whitewater rafting in Nepal, in the Himalayas during monsoon season.
God bless you, Chris.
Yes, God bless
Jeff.
you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
I was just hoping it wasn't picked up. That was it. And it's during monsoon season, and all of the rivers were shut down except the river we were on.
Right.
And we got in the middle of that, and I thought this was a really bad idea.
Right.
So the owner of they didn't even have us sign a waiver. We didn't sign anything. We just get in these raging rapids. I've shown you the video of where we got in on that river, and it was already Class 3 rapids there. And he's explaining to us, now listen, if you go overboard, don't worry. We have the 3-time world champion recovery team.
Wow.
Is our group. And I raised my hand, and he said yes. And I said, I don't want to be recovered. I'd rather be rescued. Can you send the rescue people? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and laughed, and we got in. And I'm telling you, there were moments on that whitewater rafting trip I thought, this is it. This is how I die. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's so great. Mine is when we were in Egypt, we also had a day where we were just sort of sightseeing, and we went to go see the pyramids. And for those of you who don't know, the pyramids are one big giant tomb of the Pharaoh, and you can climb. You can actually pay to climb all the way up into the pyramids, and it's an exhausting climb.
It is.
It's a grueling climb, and you get up in there,
and it gets hot.
And it's hot.
So hot.
Yeah, and your muscles are... Anyway, so I'm all the way up in there. It took like 30 minutes to get up there, it seemed like anyway. And there's this room where there's a box, and it's made out of stone. It's part of the, one big marble.
Yeah, it's kind of built into into that sarcophagus room.
Yeah. And so it's the box where the Pharaoh's sarcophagus was for, I'm assuming, thousands of years. But since then, all the treasure's been removed. But you can walk into that room, and there's like this box. Well, there's like a rope that says, do not cross, do not touch. And there was a guy in there, and the security guy, and the security guy said, hey, since you're the only two in here, he goes, I just want to let you know I'm going to go down, and I'll be back up. So he left us in the room alone. Mm-hmm. And it's like a 20-minute, 30-minute walk down. And so I knew nobody was going to be there. And so I looked over at my buddy, and I said, hey, I want to climb in and lay in the tomb. Yeah. Where it was. And so I actually climbed over the rope, which you're not supposed to do, laid in there, and I folded my arms like a cross, and he took a picture, and I have a photo of it. But I'm just thinking, gosh, every time I see the pyramids, right, that thing was created, right, for
a pharaoh.
That pharaoh, and I laid there where he was for thousands of years.
That was the one that you can go up into the middle of. That's the Great Giza. Pyramid, right? That's the Great Pyramid of Khufu.
Oh, no, is it? I thought it was Giza.
Well, it's in Giza.
Oh, it's in Giza.
Yeah. But it's a Great Pyramid of Khufu. So I did the same thing when I went there, which is hysterical. I don't have a photo of it because I didn't want any evidence, but I just did it just to be
hilarious.
Funny.
Yeah, what's so funny is I told that story a long time ago, a couple years back, and you're like, I did the same thing. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Yeah. And by the way, I don't know anybody who has that story.
Me either.
I don't know anybody who's done that.
I don't know either.
And then here, you and I both have done it, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, so those are two crazy things that we've done that we can't believe. How about, have you had any encounters with animals or any of those kinds of things, or vehicles or any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think you probably have more than me. The only story I tell is that when I was in Kenya, which I think you were there that weekend, when I was in that missionary house, that Methodist missionary camp with you, when you taught, remember that? Yeah. It was like 2 a.m, and I heard the dogs barking outside, like in a really fierce way, and I almost walked outside because they were in a pen, right? And I almost walked outside to see what was going on. But I didn't. I was super close, 2 a.m. I thought, oh, I'll go look at the stars. And the next morning, our leaders came in and said, it's really possible the reason why they were barking is because the wild dogs that roam Africa could have been out there very close in the field. Right. And they said, had you walked out and that was the case, you would have surely died.
Yeah. Well, so when we are in bed, they let go their guard dogs. So their guard dogs are inside the fence of the compound.
Oh, wow.
And those guard dogs will tear you up too. So yeah. So either side of that. Yeah, that was, I remember when that happened. That was a crazy one. Yeah. How about that time we were in Tanzania together and the driver drove right into a pride of lions?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah,
we didn't even have any doors.
Right.
There's no doors. You just reach out, smack it on the head if you wanted to. Right. Thank goodness you could see their bellies were distended. They'd already eaten that morning. But, well, hey, how many times have you been completely full and you still ate a Twinkie? Right? One more chicken nugget. I mean, you're literally white meat. They might go, hey, I haven't had that before. You know what I mean?
I have a video of the lion who was eyeballing me. Remember, she was walking toward me, and then she just turned at the last minute. I'm like, I'm within striking distance.
You could have smacked her on the head. Yeah, it's crazy.
Really crazy.
Well, we've done a lot. Well, thank you, Marissa. There's honestly, I bet you we could go for another hour just telling snippets of dumb things we've done.
Snippets.
Somehow, this is how you know that God protects dumb people.
Right.
Because we've done some stuff. Yeah.
Not because of ourselves, but in spite of ourselves.
No, in spite of ourselves. That's right.
All right.
That was a fun one. I like that one.
It was. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you.
So we are continuing with the life of Solomon, which we began last week. And how do you transition from I can't believe I actually did that to this, Chris?
Well, speaking of traveling the world, Solomon had the world travel to him.
Ooh, there you go.
There it is.
Man. That's fantastic because that's what this is all about.
That's right.
This whole thing is about the visit of the Queen of Sheba.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Funny thing is, we said it right before the recording. We were going to do a cheesy transition, and I forgot.
Right.
But
cheesy transition.
I came up with it, though.
There you go. Well, the best cheesy transitions are the one you don't think about.
Right.
Speaking of traveling the world traveled to Solomon. Okay, so we are in 2 Chronicles chapter 9, and we're going to read, I think, most of this entire chapter. It says, when the Queen of Sheba, which Sheba is down in Ethiopia, what we would consider modern-day Ethiopia. When the Queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame, she came to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions, and she arrived with a large group of attendants and a great caravan of camels loaded with spices, large quantities of gold, and precious jewels. And when she met with Solomon, she talked with him about everything she had on her mind. Solomon had answers for all her questions. Nothing was too hard for him to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba realized how wise Solomon was, and when she saw the palace he had built, she was overwhelmed. She was so amazed at the food on his tables, the organization of his officials and their splendid clothing, the cupbearers and their robes, and the burnt offerings Solomon made at the temple of the Lord. And she exclaimed to the king, "Everything I heard in my country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. I didn't believe what was said until I arrived here and saw it with my own eyes. In fact, I had not heard the half of your great wisdom. It is far beyond what I was told. How happy your people must be. What a privilege for your officials to stand here day after day listening to your wisdom. Praise the Lord your God, who delights in you and has placed you on the throne as king to rule for him. Because God loves Israel and desires this kingdom to last forever, he has made you king over them so you can rule with justice and righteousness." And then she gave the king a gift of 9,000 pounds of gold, great quantities of spices, and precious jewels. Never before had there been spices as fine as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. In addition, the crews of Hiram and Solomon brought gold from Ophir. They also brought red sandalwood and precious jewels. The king used the sandalwood to make steps for the temple of the Lord and the royal palace and to construct lyres and harps for the musicians. Never before had such beautiful things been seen in Judah. I continue, right?
Yes.
What verse was
Actually, verse number 12.
Is King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba whatever she asked for, gifts of greater value than the gifts she had given him. Then she and all her attendants returned to their own land. Each year, Solomon received about 25 tons of gold. This did not include the additional revenue he received from merchants and traders. All the kings of Arabia and the governors of the provinces also brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold, each weighing more than 15 pounds. He also made 30 smaller shields of hammered gold, each weighing more than 7.5 pounds. The king placed these shields in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then the king made a huge throne decorated with ivory and overlaid with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps with a footstool of gold. There were armrests on both sides of the seat, and the figure of a lion stood on each side of the throne. There were also 12 other lions, one standing on each end of the 6 steps. No other throne in all the world could be compared with it. All of King Solomon's drinking cups were solid gold, as were all the utensils in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. They were not made of silver, for silver was considered worthless in Solomon's day.
Wow.
The king had a fleet of trading ships manned by the sailors sent by Hiram. Once every 3 years, the ships returned, loaded with gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. So King Solomon became richer and wiser than any other king on earth. Kings from every nation came to consult him and to hear the wisdom God had given him. Year after year, everyone who visited brought him gifts of silver and gold, clothing, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for his horses and chariots, and he had 12,000 horses. He stationed some of them in the chariot cities and some near him in Jerusalem. He ruled over all the kings from the Euphrates River in the north to the land of the Philistines and the border of Egypt in the south. The king made silver as plentiful in Jerusalem as stone, and valuable cedar timber was as common as the sycamore fig trees that grow in the foothills of Judah. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and many other countries. And we can just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
With his unbelievable wealth and power and wisdom.
So again, it's just one of those things where, growing up, reading the Bible and going to Bible college and being in church world, when you hear all these references to King Solomon or David, you don't think of them as like multi-billionaires,
right?
Right? You just don't. You think of what it means to fight battles and then, all the different things that are written about them in terms of their character, integrity, their lessons, their faith, right? And all their hardships and struggles and all their, things that they had to overcome. And, you just don't think of them sitting there receiving, ready for this, 25 tons of gold.
I looked it up.
Yeah.
And today's value, that's $1.9 billion.
And that was every year.
That was every year, not including the gold he got in tribute from all of the kings of Arabia and all of the governors of the provinces.
Yeah, that's
just some. That's some of his revenue
that's
per year.
Only gold, by the way.
Of gold.
That's just of gold.
It doesn't mention, it doesn't even add up. It doesn't tell us the totals on the number of gems and all that kind of stuff that's also coming to him.
I'm a little fascinated by him receiving apes.
Yeah, apes and peacocks. Yeah. Well, he had his own zoo.
Right.
That's kind of what they're hinting at there, and that's one of those traditional things.
Tribute of 1,000 apes.
What do you do with apes? But, yeah,
I guess that was kind of the thing. Yeah. So here we're seeing
and peacocks. You can imagine the big peacocks walking all around his palace.
Well, imagine peacocks on that landscape, the beautiful landscape, right? It had to have been just glorious.
So then the Queen of Sheba shows up.
Which I can't even believe you said the words, that would be modern day Ethiopia, without saying.
I was just in Ethiopia a couple days ago.
Yes. Yeah. I can't believe you didn't say that immediately.
Yeah.
And so, by the way, this is a cool, quick reference. So you tell everybody why you went to Ethiopia. What was the idea?
So I work with the Timothy Initiative,
yes.
And so we had a large gathering of our major contributors and donors, and every year we do this. It's a Global Partners Weekend. You can find that online. Global Partners Weekend. We do 2 of them. We raise a lot of money in those times, but for a lot of people, they give a lot of money and don't always have, they're giving to an idea. And so we're always trying to find ways to make the idea be very real and tangible, because a lot of these people, they're not going to get on a plane and go to the places that we're investing in, where we start new churches, we make disciple makers, all these kinds of things. So one of the ideas the CEO had was, hey, let's send the chairman of the board and his wife to Ethiopia, and because Ethiopia was getting ready to have a big baptism.
Right.
And so they were going to baptize 350-something new believers in this one event. And so my wife and I, at the GPW, the Global Partners Weekend gathering, they call us up on stage with our suitcases. They send us with a friend of ours called Mezgebu.
We're within the first half an hour of the start of the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Right. And we took off right from there, got on a plane, flew all the way to Ethiopia. We were on the plane and in airports for 22 hours. We landed. We got 3 hours of sleep, and then we went to this baptism, and we broadcast the baptism live.
Yeah.
And told the story of the guy. It was pretty neat. And then that we baptized, and then they had all these other baptisms, and there was singing and dancing and celebration. And then we were able to sleep that night in bed, and then we got on a plane and flew back to the U.S. So 20 it was 40-something hours of flying so we could do this, 1 hour baptism event.
1 hour baptism event. Yeah,
it was pretty rough.
It had to have been one of the craziest things to sign up for that I've heard of.
Yeah.
Because obviously I've been to, Africa, I don't know, 8-9 times or whatever. And I've seen, different villages, and I've seen baptisms where we've been there together in Tanzania, where those baptisms are incredible to be a part
phenomenal,
of.
Yeah.
They're phenomenal. But getting there is like...
It's brutal.
Yeah. And so for you to spend 40 hours to do that for a 1 hour baptism was one of the most insane things I've ever heard
So we
of.
get there, and this lake is it's a volcanic lake.
Yeah.
So the top of the volcano had blown off, and then it flooded. And so we're in there, and they wanted me to go down in the water baptized. And the water was like chocolate milk. It was so...
Yeah,
it was really rough.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. And so I was like, no, it's okay. I'll witness. And no, we want you to go down. You're guest of honor. So I go down the water, and just before I go in the water, I said, well, I hope the crocodiles don't like white meat, because I'm going to be the only option.
Right.
But thank goodness, nothing bit me while I was in the water.
Yes.
And it was a little scary. But anyways, there's amazing things happening. Thousands of new churches are being planted all over Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And it's really phenomenal. But, the Queen of Sheba goes back from, according to tradition, she leaves Jerusalem. She's so impressed by Solomon and his wisdom, but also his faith, that she adopts Judaism and imports Judaism into Ethiopia, to the point that thousands of years later, one of the largest groups of non-Hebrew Jews in the world were there in Ethiopia, to the point that by the time you get to the New Testament, remember, one of the very first non-Jewish people, non-Middle Eastern people to become Christians was the Ethiopian eunuch. Coming in the book of Acts, it literally says the Ethiopian eunuch was returning home to Ethiopia from Jerusalem after having worshipped.
Right.
He went to Jerusalem to worship,
Yeah.
And then he was going home. So this was the beginning of that. And it's, 1,000 years before
that's
before Jesus.
That's great thinking. I wouldn't have connected those dots. Hey, there's a note here, and it says in 1 Kings 10, which tells the same exact story, by the way. It says, in accumulating chariots and horses, a huge harem, 1 Kings 11, and incredible wealth, it actually says Solomon was violating God's commands for a king, violating what was said in Deuteronomy 17, apparently. God prohibited these actions because he knew how they would hurt the nation both politically and spiritually, 1 Samuel 8. The more luxurious Solomon's court became, the more the people were taxed. Excessive taxation created unrest, and soon conditions became ripe for a revolution. Having everything he wanted, Solomon forgot God and allowed pagan influences to enter his court through the pagan wives, thus accelerating the spiritual corruption of the nation. And it sounds like we've not really gotten there yet. But the reason why I bring it up is because this is the beginning of the road there, right?
Yeah, there's a conflict here because also the Bible often talks about Job's wealth, Abraham's wealth as signs of God's blessing for right living
and favor. Yep.
Right. So you have that David was incredibly wealthy as a sign. The issue wasn't that he became wealthy.
Right.
Wealth by itself is not an issue. It's often a sign that you did the right things. You made good choices. You were wise with how you managed your resources. It's the opulence. That's the difference. You and I, we have a friend, Tom Messer, down in Florida. He pastors a great church. He's the president of a great Bible college. And Tom says one of his challenges to his wealthy friends is before you increase your standard of living, make sure you increase your standard of giving. Mm-hmm. And what happened was Solomon shifted. So he took several $1 billion and built the temple, and then he was done with that. He just kept giving to himself. Now, the people also prospered. There was a season here where silver was so rampant in the city of Jerusalem, it was like stones. So the people also benefited. As long as the king is serving the people and serving God, things are good. But what happens is by the end of Solomon's reign, and you'll find this out, we'll talk about it in the next few days, Solomon, all these women that he has in his household did not convert to Judaism. Instead, he began to worship their gods and build their temples. He also began to drive for more and more and more and more wealth. And it stopped being that the silver was flowing through the streets and started being that everything was flowing to the king. Mm-hmm. And his heart shifted in there somewhere. But here at this point, when you meet Queen of Sheba, she's seeing him at his peak. She's seeing him when he's honoring God as much as he can. He's prospering the city and the people of Israel. He's got peace from coast to coast. He has wealth beyond comprehension, and the whole kingdom, everybody in the kingdom is succeeding too. So it's possible to have your very best day today, and if you're not paying attention, you might have your worst day tomorrow spiritually. Right? So sometimes it's a temptation. Well, I built my temple. I've worshiped my God. I proved that I'm a good follower of God.
Right.
And then suddenly it shifts from God over to us if we're not careful. So it's a constant battle of our heart. I think that's what you see in Solomon's life as it fades. At this moment, I don't think this is a bad thing.
Right.
By the time you get to the end of his career, it's turned into just self-centeredness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just it's a good thing to mention on the onset because we have to be on guard against that all the time.
Right.
So even as we make great things and wealth increases, and even as we, begin to be stable and financially secure, we need to guard against all those things in our lives.
Well, we've had several questions, and I don't know if Desiree is going to put this in one of them in the next few days or not. I haven't looked ahead, but. We've had several questions about if Solomon was so wise, why did he make so many dumb choices?
Right.
The two big dumb choices that he made was marrying so many women that were pagans. They didn't follow God. That was one. And then the other was his abuse of his power later in his career and taking everything to himself. Those two would probably be the two worst things that he does. So I think my answer to that question, how could such a wise man, the wisest man who ever lived, essentially, how could he possibly make so many dumb decisions? And it's possible to be wise and still make a dumb decision.
Yeah,
right. That's the only answer. It seems shocking to us. If he's the wisest person, he's still only a human.
Right.
And humans are sinners. And so he makes bad choices sometimes.
Sometimes we know the right thing to do. We just don't want to do it.
Oh, yeah. We could ask our listeners, why do you know what you should do and then don't do it sometimes?
Right.
It's the same.
Right.
You can know the truth. You can have wisdom. But wisdom is only valuable if you apply it.
That's right.
And there's times that he chose not to, and it was catastrophic. But
Yeah.
here in this season, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and blessed is the nation whose king follows God. And that's what's happening here. He's doing all the right things at this point. It's later in his life that he shifts. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's our time. So hopefully we'll see you next time on The Bible Guys.